Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Bodied. The group stage for Cloud9's group just finished, and we decided to have an emergency episode and talk about it. I'm Havokpus, along with my partner in crime, my dynamic friend, Frozencreek.
Hello, how's it going?
But before we get started, I do want to give a quick shout out to the Cloud9 PUBG team. They participated in the C9 PUBG Invitational. It lasted, I think, like maybe 5 days, and they had maybe it was like I can't remember the number of games each day, but they crushed it, and I think they set like some kill records for that tournament. I think they were just getting so many kills, and they ended up getting first place. They got the big trophy, and PUBG has been doing really well recently. Even though there hasn't been a lot of PUBG events, they've been doing pretty well. So I just want to give them a quick shout out before we start.
Yeah, congrats to them. They looked really good throughout the whole
Yes.
tournament.
Yeah, I think they were in first for most of it. They had a pretty commanding lead. Even when they were not like winning individual games, they were taking advantage of how the rules were set for that tournament. And I think they would just try to fight for kills as much as possible. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So going from the play-ins to groups, I think it's safe to say that everyone was a bit uneasy about how Cloud9 would do. They looked really sloppy and kind of shaky. You know, they had to take Gambit to 5 games. A lot of stuff was kind of uncertain. So Frozen, before we get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what went down in groups, what were your thoughts as we were kind of ramping into that part of the tournament?
I will say that I was nervous and I really didn't expect a ton. I knew that Vitality was good. I knew that Gen G was probably not the best Korean team here, but like it's still the two-time defending champ going into groups, and we looked suboptimal playing in the play-ins. I know that we didn't drop a game in the group stage, and sometimes things can get weird in group stage games, and also even in a best of 5 against a play-in region. So I was anxious because we really didn't look that good against Gambit, but I think you guys all know what happened. We're recording this after our group stage game, so morale is
Yeah,
high.
and yeah, and I think the first day was really interesting because the team, firstly, predominantly used Svenskeren over Blabber since Blabber doesn't have that much experience. I think Reaper did kind of want to test Blabber by throwing him in the deep end, playing against, I believe it was Genji. Uh, and actually, in that game, C9 was actually going even with them for most of it, and it was just they made some missteps in terms of positioning, and they made like 2 mistakes, and then they just kind of ended up losing. But their performance in the group stage looked okay for the first, few days, and it was mostly, I think, really interesting to see that even though we were sort of in the quote unquote group of death, us and pretty much everyone else in that group looked a lot more evenly matched than was expected, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is because of the meta that's evolved through the group stage. Is like it wasn't more of like a chess match. It was more of I guess a more of a slaughter.
There was a lot more emphasis on fighting, that's for sure, and I think the champions that became sort of prominent, I think definitely featured strengths that C9 have. Like C9, and this has been historical for them. This isn't some new thing. Cloud9, even in the days of when the original roster was playing, it was not more that, oh, we know how to do like all these crazy macro strats or anything really crazy in particular. It was just, we're going to outfight you. You know, we're gonna run at you as a squad of 5. You're gonna come at us with a squad of 5. We're gonna punch each other, and we're going to come out on top because we just love to scrap. And I think Cloud9 has once again started hit a really fortunate spot in how the game is, to where it really rewards team fighting, and Cloud9 loves to team fight.
Yeah, and I think those first couple games in the first four days of group stages kind of had the team a little hesitant to go out there and try and play with the big boys like Gen G and RNG. But in the post match interview today, after the Vitality game, Sneaky and Zazel, or not Zazel, Sneaky and Licorice were talking about how Reaper encouraged them to just keep fighting because we can win those fights. And I counted up the total kills in the first 3 games of the group stage to today's group stage, and in the first 3 games we only had 22 kills, and in the second 3 games we had 43. So almost a double of what we had in the first 3 games, and I think that just goes to show that the team was prepared to go out there and just take fights, and they actually looked really good. The RNG. I'm blanking. What's
Tiebreaker.
tiebreaker? Tiebreaker. Yeah, it was a little hazy. There were many times we got some kills that we probably shouldn't have, and even vice versa. But I think we can be pretty proud with how they showed. 2 teams left up the zillion against us, which I'm not sure will happen in a best of 5.
Oh no,
And
that is
yeah,
Jensen's best champion. I think that, especially like after just watching how Jensen played today on the Zillion, and he played out of his mind. And even, you know, we probably would have beaten RNG in that tiebreaker had Jensen not misclicked. And it was a thing with his passive where he had misclicked Zazel and started to do the little Sands of Time experience thing. And while that was going on, RNG jumped in to fight. And I think if he didn't misclick, we probably would have just won that game. And we were taking it to RNG for the majority of that game. So yeah, I think that there's no way they let Jensen take anything like Zillion or LeBlanc, because if you give him the champions that he is really comfortable and really skilled on, you're kind of maybe chancing it a little bit more.
yeah, and I think RNG did show some weakness of the Zillion pick. Just there were a couple fights during the game. It wasn't the big fight that ended the game, but I'm not exactly sure how far into it. But you could see Zillion miss a couple bombs that would have been really big damage sources and could have won a fight or two.
Yeah,
And
I
in the
noticed
end,
that too.
yeah,
There were definitely.
and like it is still like a zoning skill shot. So even if you set it down, there were 2 RNG players zoned out, including Uzi. But it would have been nice to hit one of those, obviously. But I think overall the team played really well today. Uh, obviously we won 3 or 4 games. We beat the tournament favorites and then the 2-time defending champs. So I can't complain.
No, yeah, and I mean, going into the day, I had such low expectations because I was thinking more how we would get by if that was like, okay, we can beat Vitality, we can beat Vitality if we do that, and then just pray to God that, you know, RNG just beats everyone else. We can maybe do that, but it was really sort of the reverse where we were beating everyone else, and Genji played just awful, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah, I was very unimpressed with how they showed up during the group stages. I maybe they just weren't ready to fight so much, and they wanted to play more of a macro game. But even then, they weren't exactly a polished team.
I think that's partially why teams like Vitality and Cloud9 were able to look and go toe to toe with, you know, Genji and RNG. I think a lot of people, like, if TSM was in this group instead of us, TSM would be like, okay, well, what's the Korean teams doing? Let's try to replicate this. Instead, what Cloud9 and Vitality did was go, okay, well, here's what the Korean teams are doing. Let's stick to our own style. Let's stick to how we like to play, and then work around that. And I think picking style and sort of your own thing versus a sort of tried and true, I guess substance method definitely seemed to work out for us. And it's really interesting that that's the way that we kind of did it rather than okay, the Korean teams are doing this and trying to more fit the mold of whatever is already being established.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we didn't try to replicate the Korean way of playing because I don't think it suits the youth in the squad, and I do actually do feel like that kills right now do generate kills and fighting a lot are probably the better way to play the game at the moment. Like I'm looking at the kills from the first 3 games and IG, Fnatic, Vitality, KT, Rolster, EDG, and RNG. Um, three of those teams went through a 3-0 in their first 3 games. Two of them went 2-1, and Vitality was the only team with a losing record. The highest Korean team is KT Rolster in kills, and then you have to go all the way down to. Is that just Afrika? Oh, Janji is right behind RNG, but um, it just seems like it's the right way to play the game right now almost, and I think that is probably the best way to keep the game alive, just because it's been a fucking blast to watch these group stages games. That first Vital indie game was a lot of fun.
Today was so great in terms of the quality of the matches because I think that Worlds in the past has kind of been. I think so. I think maybe it was maybe last year or the year before. Worlds was pretty good, but I think sometimes Worlds just get really bogged down in sort of the adherence to a sort of meta, and it can make the game really boring. But today was really fun because you had teams really stepping up and playing like equals rather than one larger team versus a lesser team. And it was so fun, especially since Cloud9 won, but seeing Vitality, this team that I think that no one expected to do really well, and then Cloud9 do really well. And it just the quality of the matches felt really good and a lot higher than I think most group stage matches would be.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that the meta is going to slow down a little bit, just because matches become that much more important in a best of 5. But overall, this has probably been one of the better worlds to watch. The only bad thing is that all the games take place from like 4 or 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, that's the only bad thing.
Yeah, which sucks. But
I didn't regret losing sleep today though.
yeah, me neither. It was a blast. Um, what I
Okay,
do
go ahead.
think, I'm just going over like the whole meta thing. I do think what has been extremely cool to see is kind of teams being able to play their own style and find success. So obviously our group has kind of just been full of kills, but teams like G2 have been able to play a really good 1-3-1 and be extremely successful on it. So I do think there will be some different styles once we leave group stages, but it's probably one of the better worlds to watch from an entertainment and even like a macro game perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I've been really enjoying this tournament so far, and the narratives that have followed have been really great to sort of see unfold. I guess my next question, in sort of leading, going down this discussion, is what does this say about the narrative of Cloud9 as a whole? This is yet another time where Cloud9 has come into Worlds, everyone underrates them. I think partially because you see the other international teams and some of the other higher seed teams overshadow them, but Cloud9 comes into Worlds, is rated as an underdog, but then ends up playing better than expected and then getting out of groups. I think this year and how they performed, I think definitely cements that Cloud9 internationally is just a top 8 team. You know, uh, people may not maybe want to admit it or clarify that way, considering that Cloud9 has not had the domestic success to, I think, back up that ranking. But when you consider their performances internationally at Worlds every year versus the likes of like TSM or other squads coming from NA or just any other region in general, I think this has to speak for something, and they are not as bad as I think they're perceived, and they are in fact a top 8 team just globally.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of ambitious to say, but I feel like they're one of the top, maybe you could say top 8 to 10 teams, at an international level, and not taking too much into account domestic success, because in our group we were probably the least successful domestic team, but just due to the fact that we've had extremely consistent coaching, um and the fact that we have some miraculous ability to pull out wins in group games that we really shouldn't be able to, that we could be considered, maybe I've obviously not like a tier 1 team, but maybe like a tier 2 team among international events.
I suppose that's fair considering we have not had the domestic success to reflect such a ranking. But personally, I think that overall, if you're going to Worlds year after year after year, and if you're consecutively getting into quarterfinals, I think that definitely has to speak for something.
Yeah, what I would like to see is Cloud9 get into a position where they can earn themselves better than a 3 seed. But I feel like that's also kind of helped them get out of groups.
I think it has helped because it allows them more practice time. Because they have to, instead of having to like, okay, well we won the championship, now we can just kind of go to Korea and dick around until the tournament actually starts. It's okay, guys. Now we got to get ready for Gauntlet. Okay, now we got to get ready for play-ins. Okay, now we got to get ready for group stages. So they're constantly ramping up each event instead of having to, and just constantly kind of run hot. Versus how like a Team Liquid or a TSM situation where okay, well we won the championship, the domestic championship. Let's wait. I guess maybe we can do some scrims, but let's just gotta wait for that tournament to start, and then we're gonna get going. So you know the other teams that kind of got to skip out on plans and stuff, they are not running as hot or running as on. I think that's definitely helped C9 with their successes.
Yeah, I was more trying to get to the point when I first started speaking that it would be nice to see Cloud9 put themselves in a position to where North America is not getting that play in draws, so they can go straight to
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
and
for sure.
up that domestic success a little bit more, because even the fact that we were the second best North American team coming out of the summer split, like we still had a bunch of hurdles to jump just to get into the group stage.
Yeah, I mean, definitely from a fan's perspective, I think that uh, I would definitely like to see that CC9 win a championship or at least get qualify through points, so we don't have to go through another gauntlet that's really stressful. Even though we are the undisputed gauntlet champions,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, at this
I,
point.
I really want Cloud9 to make like a wrestling belt specifically for the gauntlet and have like all of our gauntlet wins on it. And if we're ever beaten or if we auto qualify for worlds and don't have to go, we can sort of hand the belt off to another team that wins the gauntlet that year. I think that would just be really cool, like a
Yeah,
ceremonial
and
type
have
thing.
like and have like a way to like talk shit.
Yeah, yeah. Like I just want to see Jack like have like the belt and have it like thrown over his shoulder and be like, "We're gonna." we're gonna take it to him in the gauntlet this year. We're the best.
Yeah, so I guess the last thing we could talk about is our potential matchups in the next round in the first knockout stage is for best of 5. So right now in Group A, C, and D, you might already know some of the outcomes by the time you get to listening to this. But Flash Wolves and G2 are sitting top of Group A. KT Rolster, EDG are top of Group C, and Group D is IG and Fnatic. We obviously know IG. We played them last year. I think the main team that I would want to avoid right now is just KT Rolster. I think that would probably be the worst team we could face in
Yeah,
the next round.
I agree. I think that if you're looking at all the potential competition, I think the only thing Cloud9 has to worry about is drawing KT. Everyone else, I think they more or less have a fairly good chance at beating. But when it comes to KT, I just don't. I don't think they can do it, just because KT is just super super good.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And we're already in a group with the best Chinese team, so we can't face them, which is good.
Yeah, I think avoiding RNG would be good. I wouldn't mind facing. I think ideally I'd probably want Flash Wolves or I guess like one of the European teams because we've beaten the European
Yeah.
teams before,
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
I think Flash Wolves wouldn't be too harsh.
Yeah, I think the main thing to watch is going to be Group A and seeing if Africa Freaks can come back and get into one of the top two positions. Right now it's Flash Wolves and G2 at 2 wins and 1 loss, and Africa has 1 win and 2 losses. So depending on how that group plays out, we still could avoid Africa if they end up the 2nd seed, but it depends on who comes out of that group top because we can only play first place teams from the groups. So
Yeah. So, do you think, based on sort of the current landscape, do you think that Cloud9 could potentially go further than quarterfinals?
it's gonna have
That's,
to depend on the draw, I think. But
that's what I was gonna say.
yeah, the odds of us drawing KT are lower than the odds of us drawing someone else, and I think that suits us pretty good. So I don't want to give us huge chances just because we've been to the quarterfinals and enough and been beaten by better and worse teams than who we're going to face
Yeah.
coming up. But I think I'm hopeful. Since we were the first team to finish our group stages, we have an extra day, 2-3 days to prepare for our next round of games, which I feel like is probably a good thing. So I do like that aspect of it.
Sort of as a follow up question, do you think Cloud9 can get the triple crown, the esports triple crown? So, by what I'm referring to is CS:GO Major, Overwatch League World Champion, and now the League of Legends World Championship. Do you think that personally I think there is at least a couple instances where Cloud9 definitely does win worlds, but I think that percentage wise, I think those are very low.
Uh, I would say the odds of it are very low of happening, but we've seen crazier things in sports. Just in the past year, 16 seed beat the number 1 seed in basketball, which had literally never happened before in the NCAA tournament. In Champions League soccer, Liverpool I made it all the way to the finals of the Champions League, which isn't like the most outrageous thing, but it was extremely surprising considering some of the competition they faced on the way to the final. Just 3 years ago, Leicester won the English Premier League, which is probably one of the biggest upsets in all of sports. So it wouldn't be outrageous for something like this to happen, but I would say that it is extremely unlikely unless we get a lot of luck. One with our draw to the quarters, then we need to have a decent draw to the semis and hope that somebody knocks out RNG on their side of the bracket. I think that's our best chance as success, and kind of just hope that the Chinese and Korean teams kind of engulf themselves.
Yeah, I agree. Um, but yeah, I think seeing Cloud9 win World would be amazing. I could die after that and probably be okay with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one last thing before I think we go, I do want to talk a bit about sort of Svenskeren and kind of the narrative surrounding him coming from TSM and them looking really poor for a little while with him internationally, and then he comes and plays for us, and he's still kind of experiencing the same troubles that he had under TSM, but then summer rolls around, and then we kind of stick him back to academy to essentially get his balls back, and then he ends up being an extremely good asset for us in the jungle. I think that given when we first signed him, how much fans were ready to skewer him and kind of renounce him, it's really great to see that he's sort of risen above that and just went like, I'm going to try to do my best, and now he is. Everyone is glad that he's on the team.
Yeah. I if you would have asked me in private, I would have been one of the bigger proponents of, or bigger people fighting against keeping Svenskeren at any point in time.
I remember you were. It was really
I
really funny.
I still would have said that pretty far through playoffs and even play-ins, but he's came up big for us recently, so I do have to respect that. So I think he's earned another year with Blabber, just because I think that Blabber is the future
I think I think if you're
of this team.
C9, you stick with this 7-man roster
Yeah.
concept
Hmm.
because as soon as they implemented it and as soon as they figured out how to work, they did great things. So I think that they stick with this, either stick with the roster that they have or ensure that they have people in place that would make for a really good 7-man roster and just stick with what they're doing. Try to not change anything. Hold on to Licorice and Jensen for dear life because we need them.
Yeah, and I don't know who would come around and try and take the Lakers from us. So I do feel confident about that. There was a tweet I saw today from what's his face. Gosh, I didn't sleep much this weekend. Jungler for Golden Guardians
Oh, contracts.
contracts. Where
How do
he
you
said
how do
something
you
about
forget about
Cloud9.
our boy contract? Well, not our boy since he betrayed us, but our former boy.
He's one. He's a former boy, and two, I did not sleep enough this weekend. So my memory is hazy right now. So contracts congratulated that team. I don't know if that would have solved all of our problems, but it would have been nice to have an up and coming jungler still. But we have one in anyway.
Yeah, and I'm confident that Blabber once he gets more experience, we saw him, uh, playing in the play-ins and a little tiny bit in the group stage, and he looked good. He's really rough around the edges, but this is literally his first split ever playing on an LCS team, and he came in halfway through. So imagine, I think that his ceiling is extremely high, and the more he plays with C9 and under our system and our environment, he will be an amazing jungler.
Yeah, him, Zazel, and Licorice would be a really cool team to see carry on the Cloud9 legacy after a sneaky and Jetson finally leave. So, and their strong core, they helped us get to Worlds already and out of the group of death. So that's pretty much all I have to say about for today, I think.
Yeah, I think so. We will be back when the group draws happen, which I guess is later this week.
Yeah, and then that'll be more of a full episode. This was just
Yeah,
make for last week because it would have been weird to drop an episode during the group stages when by the time it got posted, it would have already been late news. So
yeah.
we apologize for that, but we'll make it up to you guys.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you again soon.
Bye, guys.